this for the folks at home. Now, this is just a wrap up of the last lecture. We've got some headlines too to talk about, which will be kind of fun here. We're looking at, let's see if we can get to it. All right, some great news. Now, listen, I've had the first student today complete all their work and get an A. They used the study guide, the reading, to finish the last study guide. And I went and put zeros in for everybody. So let's go ahead and look at that real fast. Here we go. Let's find the roll book. And I need you to be careful. I got an email from a student. So I'm going to go over here and kind of show you. You can see that I can't see any names, right? But so, well, what if I don't do this study guide here? Is the Biden Harris readings. Students heading toward an A. In fact, actually, I want to go to a different class. Let's go to this one here. Now, look, this student has 90% or will have it. And so I'm going to go, okay, here's the students, 81, right? 81 with a bunch of zeros right here. So no, 90. This is the one right here, 90. Okay, 90.8, bunch of zeros. This is the last two assignments, last two papers. Okay, now the problem is, got to be really careful because notice one's worth 30 points, the other's worth 40. So if he takes, it's this one right here. So you got to be over 90 or this won't work. So you got to pretty well have a solid grade after you finish a research paper. So I'd be very careful. Most of you are probably going to have to do all of them. I'm just going to warn you right now, but here's 40 and then 10. So there's the participation points and there's the research papers there. So 50 points total. I hit the button and he comes out at 95.5. That's cutting it close, but that's an A. So can pass on this last study guide. But if you choose the other assignment, it's not going to be quite so, it'll be too close. I just wouldn't risk it. So you got to be really, really careful if you're going to drop a study guide to make sure that you fall above. You got to get 95 and up. I mean, that's basically it. So, but the first student today finished up their last study guide and eliminated all the zeros, and that worked out really well. So yeah. So very happy about that. Very happy to see the A's roll in. Now, let me just be straight up with you. Your grade was in your hands. All you had to do was do all of the assignments, do them well, and you could write yourself right to an A. There was no test that would have thrown a curve at you, that you might have gotten a B plus, when you did all the assignments and everything else. This was the one semester in 42 years where it was really, you made a choice. I'm either going to get an A or I'm going to get something less. Okay. So the door is still open, but you have till midnight on Friday to get everything in. And if you got some low scores, like you didn't do an essay completely and that kind of thing, then what you need to do is go back and redo that and resubmit. And it's going to take forever to get all this work graded. I did start to grade research papers from those who missed the early turn-in deadline. First one I read was awesome. It was great. So got full credit right away. And that student, like I said, will be able to earn an A. So this is totally your choice this semester. What you decide the grade you want, and go after it. Total meritocracy. So that's been fun to watch though. So we're going to have a disproportionate higher number of A's this semester than we normally see, which is great considering the conditions, considering everything we're under. I am totally okay with that. And I have a complete record, 100% record of every single answer every student gave to every single question in the Qualtrics database. So if the university asks me, why are there so many A's? Well, I'll show them. And the research paper will be the number one thing I'll show them. I'll say, well, read their paper and then look at all the rest of the work. And you can go through all these questions if you want. And that student earned an A. So I'll stand by those grades every day of the week. All right, now I still have about 45 students though who haven't done the research paper. Actually, it's less than that. There's some that turned them in. So, but nevertheless, let's do some fun stuff here, really positive things. on the vaccine, if you're going to do that essay, you now have a new conclusion because they started vaccinating in England, right? Which is really, really exciting. So what we're going to do is just going to play a little clip before we get to the last concluding lecture here for the last few questions on that last study guide. So here we go.
Tonight, the moment the world has been waiting for, the first shots given of a clinically approved COVID vaccine. A 90-year-old grandmother making history, the very first person to receive Pfizer's vaccine inside the hospital for what the UK is calling V-Day. Healthcare workers lining up there as the U.S. still awaits emergency use approval. But could that approval come this week? The countdown and the FDA's first report on Pfizer's vaccine, the effectiveness after just the first of 2 shots, and how the White House is responding to a report it turned down an offer to buy millions more doses. In tears of the worst days of the pandemic. Tonight, we're now on what most experts believe is the long road back from the pandemic. It starts in the UK, where the first vaccinations are underway of a clinically proven COVID vaccine, the same vaccine that could be in use here in the US sometime this month. And it comes on the day we learn that vaccine may be far more effective than we imagine. There's a lot to cover. Let's begin with Richard Engel with the developing news from London.
At 6:31 this morning, a grandmother in a donated Christmas sweater made history. 90-year-old Margaret Keenan became patient A, the first person in the world to receive a clinically tested and proven COVID vaccine.
It was fine. It was fine. I wasn't nervous at all.
The second recipient was 81-year-old William Shakespeare, no relation to the bard.
Groundbreaking, I think. It could make a difference to our lives from now on, couldn't it?
At around 70 hospitals across the UK today, the counterattack against the coronavirus began. British officials have declared this V-Day for Vaccination Day, evocative of the victorious VE and VJ days of World War II.
It's been such a tough year for so many people, and it makes you proud to be British.
The nurse who gave the first shot, May Parsons, told me this is the start of a new chapter.
People hopefully will get all their normal lives back. I think that's a good thing to look forward to.
They're starting off slowly. At this hospital alone, they're planning to do just around 100 vaccinations today, but then to ramp that up to 400 vaccinations a day next week and keep it going 7 days a week.
Keenan, who worked in a jewelry shop up until just 4 years ago, is doing well and has a message to others.
I say go for it. Go for it because it's free and it's the best thing that's ever happened.
The road ahead is long, but today the UK and patient A left the starting blocks without a stumble. Richard Engel, NBC News, Coventry.
I'm Keir Simmons in Wales, hard hit by COVID, where one challenge will be reaching vulnerable people and their caregivers. This is what you'll soon see in America. Small community centres transformed into vaccine hubs. At the back of this basketball court are lines of vaccination cubicles. People are being ushered in one by one for their vaccine. And then you are given this immunisation card. Some patients will need reassurance. They must return for a second dose. Any reservations? Any worries?
No, you always have thoughts, don't you? But I've just come to the conclusion it's better to have it than not to have it.
They all get a moment's rest to check for adverse reactions, like this frontline doctor. You've just come from a night shift.
Yeah.
After all the politics and the vaccine science, finally, it's about the people. Still, tonight, they've asked us not to disclose the location of this centre to prevent too many people from coming. Keir Simmons, NBC News, Wales.
So things happening in the UK and here in the US, an FDA review suggests the Pfizer vaccine may even be more effective than first thought, as an FDA outside panel prepares to meet Thursday on whether to approve the vaccine here. Tom Costello has more.
36 hours ahead of the outside advisory panel's meeting, the FDA says its review of the data suggests Pfizer's COVID vaccine is very promising. While everyone needs 2 shots, the vaccine was 50% effective after the first dose, 95% effective after the second, and effective across all age and ethnic groups, even for people with underlying conditions like obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure. But will there be enough vaccine? Pfizer says it can't ship more doses to the U.S. until next summer because other countries bought up supplies first. The White House passed up a chance to buy more last summer because, says President Trump's former FDA chief, the U.S. is counting on 6 different vaccines and could not place a big bet on just one.
Okay, well, that is awesome. And I've got some people, doing homework. I know it's a homework day, and I appreciate that. So I'm not going to worry too much about if you're paying attention or not, but this is a miracle day. V-Day, Vaccination Day, reminiscent of World War II, Victory in Europe Day. And England's been really hard hit by this as well as we have. So it's exciting, but the United States does not have enough doses of this. We'll be lucky to get 20 million. And we're much, but in England, they ordered 5 doses of the vaccine, Pfizer vaccine, for every citizen in Britain. And we're not anywhere near that. So it's going to be much longer before we can get through this problem. Luckily, like I said, I think it's fantastic that we have a new administration taking over in January 20th. You should also know that the Trump administration, they tried a last-ditch effort. Yesterday was a day where all the states had to certify, and the Safe Harbor Day it's called, and they all did, but they tried to stop it in Pennsylvania in court, and the Supreme Court weighed in and basically said, we're not going to get involved in this. So the Supreme Court completely rejected all of the cases that the Trump campaign is throwing out there. They said the motion to expedite consideration of the petition for writ of certiorari is denied. Basically, we're not going to hear any of these cases. When the lower courts make the decision that there's no fraud, we agree. So the Supreme Court did weigh in and said, Joe Biden's president of the United States. And so they should not be involved in elections, and they know that. And so they said the motion to expedite consideration of petition for writ of certiorari is denied, with those simple words. Amy Coney Barrett actually recused herself from this case because she was appointed at the last minute. This was written by Justice Alito. And then they go to explain why, the cases are solid and there's been no fraud proven. So that was kind of a big day too. But what I'm excited about is that we have an administration that has experience. Administration means all the people that Biden hires to lead the government through this next time. And he's got a big plan, an ambitious plan. And if you haven't done your research paper yet on the vaccine, you can throw this in. The fact that England was the first to vaccinate, the United States will be about 2 weeks later. They say the 15th. It'll be hospital workers first. And anyway, but here's Biden's plan. So he wants 100 million vaccinations in the first 100 days of his presidency. He wants to get schools back to normal as soon as possible. And also 100 days of wearing masks, where everybody wears a mask. And so that's kind of his plan. So let's listen to his plan. You can throw this into your research paper if you haven't done it yet, as one of your, you probably do 500 words just on this.
My first 100 days won't end the COVID-19 virus. I can't promise that. But we did not get into this mess quickly. We're not going to get out of it quickly. It's going to take some time. But I'm absolutely convinced that in 100 days, we can change the course of the disease and change life in America for the better. This team will help get at least 100 million COVID vaccine shots into the arms of the American people in the first 100 days. 100 million shots in the first 100 days. And we'll follow the guidance of science to get the vaccines to those most at risk. I'm going to ask for a masking plan. Everyone for the first 100 days of my administration to wear a mask. It will start with my signing an order on day 1 to require masks where I can under the law, like federal buildings, interstate travel on planes, trains, and buses. Whatever your politics or point of view, mask up for 100 days once we take office. 100 days to make a difference. It's not a political statement, it's a patriotic act. The third thing I'm going to ask in the 100 days, it should be a national priority to get our kids back into school and keep them in school. If Congress provides the funding we need to protect students, educators, and staff, if states and cities put strong public health measures in place that we all follow. Then my team will work to see that a majority of our schools can be open by the end of my first 100 days. That's right. We'll look to have the most schools open that we can possibly in 100 days.
Now, that's all exciting news. And that would mean, frankly, people like me, getting vaccinations, because if I have if I get the vaccine, I'll be there in person. I wish I were there now, but it's just too big of a risk for me and my family being as old as I am. So it's exciting. It's exciting to have a new president coming in and we can start afresh. Yeah, there we go. Okay, well, let's do the wrap up of this lecture. And basically, again, there's so many people that get stuck up on these little words like liberal, progressive, conservative, all of this. These are just words. They're just definitions. And this idea of communism is so evil and socialism is so evil. And there's, of course, a lot of people think capitalism is so evil, and none of them are evil. They're just definitions. And the point is most of those are obsolete. We're arguing arguments that died 20, 40, 60 years ago, like they still matter. So when we talk about the world is flat, we have to understand that the world has changed, that the United States after World War II, to just briefly summarize, had 50% of all the manufacturing in the world. We were 5% of the population of the world. We got very wealthy. And in a sense, I think we got spoiled because we just assumed that was a birthright, that we would suddenly have all of this money flowing to us like we're the Rome in the center of the Roman Empire. And that's not going to last because all the countries in Europe rebuilt. This whole vaccine thing, by the way, is a European-led deal. It's not an American-led deal. We think, oh, there's no American vaccine. Let's prove it to you. Here's Pfizer. Pfizer offered all these countries to pre-purchase. Why? Because they had a lot of costs. So take a risk on us, give us some money now, and we'll come up with a vaccine, and let's hope it works. England bought right here enough for 5 doses per person. Look how many of the Pfizer they got. Now, Pfizer can only make so many. The United States was offered this many and only bought that many. That puts us in a bind. So we hope Moderna and some others, and again, Moderna, it works with a Swiss company. Pfizer is a German-led deal. The European Union didn't buy enough of this either, hedging their bets. Japan did, though. Japan bought more than we did per person. They're less than half our size. Look at Australia. Australia and New Zealand have 0 cases. They don't have to wear masks. They don't even have to socially distance. Life is normal there because they shut down and eradicated it to 0. And then they're making sure that people can only travel to safe areas. The point of this is, though, this company, Pfizer, is a global company. They don't owe allegiance to any nation. The nations have to buy from them. That is the essence of globalization. So we have to not only work with other countries to negotiate deals, but we also have to figure out how we're going to compete in the future. The problem the United States has is we assumed that the life, easygoing and jobs everywhere kind of thing in the 1950s and 60s was going to last forever, and it didn't. It started to change in the 70s, changed much more in the 80s. By the time China quits being a communist country and opens up to the world and becomes a capitalist country, as did Russia in the fall of the Berlin Wall, did all that, everything's changed. I'm going to go back to this map and show you. Before the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 to 91 was when the Cold War ended. This part of the world were not competitors to us. We didn't buy or trade or sell to any of them. But when the walls came down, they then became part of the world's economy. Now, that's a good thing because it means expanded trade, but it's also a bad thing. It means they're now new competitors. So China and India and Russia for oil and things became fierce competitors in the marketplace, in the capitalistic world, right? So in a sense, like we're all capitalists now, right? And companies aren't bound by national borders. So they go and do business wherever they can make the most money. Apple decided that this area right down here in China, they had an amazing group of factories coming together, highest tech things you can possibly imagine. And that was the best place to build the iPhone. So what happened with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War, is, yeah, this is a great moment in history, but it also meant that you're now competing with people from all over the world. It's just a bigger competitive situation. For example, I'll go back to the map again. One of my best employees at Google when I was there was born here behind the Iron Curtain. And they escaped, and there were twins, and with their family came to California. One graduated from USC, one from UCLA with honors, both of them brilliant. Well, this person who was so talented, most talented person on our team, would not have been able to be a Google employee while the Cold War was going on. My company, Qualtrics, we have one of our biggest facilities for engineering, a couple of hundred engineers in Krakow, Poland. Why? Because they're great engineers, they're wicked smart, and oh, by the way, they work for a lot less money than they were if they come to our main headquarters in Seattle, where we have like 300. The reason we go to Seattle, though, is because we can get everybody from Asia who wants to come to the United States to work and can get a permit can come here and work. They love Seattle. They'll come to Seattle, they'll come to the Bay Area, but they won't necessarily come to Utah because it's too inland for them. They don't really get it, right? And there's not, the restaurants for them and that kind of thing. So there's not the social structure if you're coming from Asia. So this whole idea that the world now is one big marketplace has changed everything. And then the next thing that changed, so that's factor number one. So you're going to have to list the 10 factors, right? Factor number two is the World Wide Web, the internet. Believe it or not, in 1995, when I published my first book on the World Wide Web, I got early in on this. Luckily, because I was working in software industry, I was able to write a textbook about it. But nobody had ever clicked on a browser. The first browser came out of a project in Switzerland at CERN. And there was an Englishman there who figured out how the World Wide Web could work. In other words, www dot, that kind of thing. And he piggybacked off an American technology, which was TCP/IP, which was figured out by the US military, which created the backbone of the internet. But when he did that, he opened up some creativity. And here in Illinois, at the University of Champaign-Urbana, a bunch of kids get together and create a visual browser like you would understand, where it has images and pictures and later video and sound and all that. What you take for granted every day, your whole Chromebook is this. They figured this out. I was able to travel there right in these early days and meet with some of those young kids, graduate students at the University of Champaign-Urbana, that made this happen. And they then got hired away by Jim Clark, who was a Silicon Valley investor, and they created a thing called Netscape. Well, Netscape turns into Firefox, turns into Mosaic, turns into Safari, turns into Chrome. And it's just a progression there. Microsoft got involved too. They had Internet Explorer. Now they have something new. But the whole idea of a browser-based world where you don't need separate computer systems, where all the computer systems in the world can talk to each other, is what enables Amazon to function, everybody to function. It allows this thing. It allows Zoom. It allows us to do school from home. All of that was born in 1994. So it's a really new advancement, but it means this: you could be anywhere in the world taking this class. You don't have to be in that classroom to take this class. You can be anywhere. The point of it is this, is that now you can do business anywhere. You don't have to be in a certain city or in a certain country. You can live anywhere in the world and conduct business and trade. That's a big game changer. It also means that countries that are poor, like Vietnam, can cheaply get into the game. The world is now flatter than ever. And that's why India is going to be such a force in the future, because they have a huge workforce, a tremendous at the top end educational system. And they got people that, been educated for 5,000 years. So India is going to be the next big one. So it's going to be China be bigger. They'll be number one, then India, and then the European Union, United States North America will fall into that category because now it doesn't matter where you live. All right, now what happens then is these industries destroy, the worldwide industries destroy other businesses. For example, how many businesses is Amazon wiping out? Where you used to just go down to the local store and those businesses, you don't need them anymore. It destroys old jobs. That is the problem the Trump voter has right now, is the jobs they've depended on their whole lives are going away. They're disappearing. Let me give you an example. Way back when I joined Google, right? They just were buying YouTube. People at the time thought, wow, that's kind of a lot of exposure, a lot of copyright issues, a lot of lawsuits potentially, but Google took it on. And this was because it was getting 150 million views a day. That, of course, is billions now. And what the deal was, is that YouTube at the time it was new, getting 150 million views a day, only had 60 people. You take CBS, the big network, the TV network, whatever, it had less views. It had been around for a century and 23,000 employees to make all the content for old-fashioned TV. Who's more efficient? So now this is why all of these media industries are so disrupted. Let's take, for example, voice over IP for Skype. When Skype was the first to do phone calls over the internet, 250 people had 53 million users. But you take British Telecom that served 90 million people, had 90,000 employees. That's no longer necessary. You look at local newspapers. Why are there no local newspapers anymore? Why are they all going away? Because, well, it started with Craigslist in the Bay Area. Now, yeah, locally we use KSL.com. But they basically used to sell ads in newspapers. So you'd buy a newspaper, you'd go through the want ads, and you'd buy a new car, you'd buy this, you'd buy that. Now you just do it all online. And by the time Craigslist did this, they were serving up 5 billion pages with 22 people. It's called economy of scale. When Google decides to do Gmail, there were 6 employees. Google was great because they gave you essentially 20% time if you were an engineer. 20% of your time could be worked on anything you wanted to work on. It didn't have to be your job. It could be anything you wanted. And 6 guys get together over the water cooler, over the coffee pot, and they said, why don't we do an email client? I mean, Hotmail had just come out and they thought, let's beat that. And they did. And so 6 developers get together, and by April of 2009, they had 91 million people using it. Now it's probably over 1 billion. And this is why Sergey said, don't write code that can't be used by 1 billion people. Gmail can be used by 8 billion people. The companies are not US companies. They're world companies. They have to obey laws in different countries, but they're going to go wherever they can make the money. And so that's kind of how that happens. This globalization, there's some great stories there I can't really talk about, but I'm going to lump the rest of them together really quick. Workflow software. You go online, you order a product, it's all digits, it's all code, all the way through until it gets to the warehouse to the product you bought. And in some of those warehouses, machines, robots actually pull the product you want, put it on a conveyor belt, and send it toward the truck that's going to be loaded to come to you. It's so sophisticated. The first company actually to do it was Walmart, to shorten the supply chain so that they get just the products they need in the store just in time. So that lowers costs. And you just look at this, these forces mean that the global supply chain, that's something you need in your local Walmart today, has got to be produced 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks ago in China, get on a boat, get on a train, get on a truck, and get to you. And all that has been automated. So that as soon as you buy something in Walmart, this is true with Amazon, everybody else, as soon as you buy it, immediately a signal goes out. This is what the sales are so far in this region. We need more product, and this is how much we need by Thursday. And that's all automated by machines. All that used to be done by humans, and now it's done by machines. The next one is outsourcing. You split service and manufacturing activities. We had almost 3,000 people working on support at Google. And one of my jobs was to try to train those people so they could do their job well and effectively. Within a year, they'd opened up Hyderabad in India and moved the support there. Now, a lot of people go, oh, wait a minute, the Indian accent, I can't understand it. You know, India is probably the largest English-speaking country in the world, but they speak very fast. So what Google would do was they would send speech coaches, and then they would give them Google Maps and so on, so that when somebody called in, say from England, it went to the queue where they had taught the Indian employees to speak more like the English do, or more like the Americans do. Americans get frustrated. They get online, oh, I can't understand this person in support, right? So they literally would send coaches. Here's how you talk to somebody from the west part of the United States. Here's how they would talk in the South. Oh, by the way, here's a map and some things in that area so you can relate to that person. So that person will, you know, be more accepting of your support help. But guess what? It costs a third to hire somebody in India to support your products than it does here. That's our problem. That's why we have a lot of support facilities in Utah. We have a lot of companies that provide support because Utah pays less than we do in California or we do in New York or in the bigger cities. So Utah gets a lot of support because we pay less. You go where it's cheapest to do business because the world is flat. It doesn't matter where you go because the internet is connected to everybody. Now, manufacturing is different. That's outsourcing. Insourcing is where you don't even do your support anymore. For example, UPS kind of did this with early computers. They had one company called Toshiba, a big provider of computers back in the day. And Toshiba had all these little stores to fix the computers if they had a problem, and it was too expensive. So basically they just said, hey, UPS, you got to pick up, we're going to go to a mail-in model. You're going to pick up our computers, but they're going to take them for America to Texas, and UPS will fix the computers and we'll pay you to do that for us. So new relationships were created where UPS gets the computer, fixes it, sends it back, bills Toshiba, you're happy, you think Toshiba's fixed it, but it was UPS doing it. So all sorts of new business models get out going. And then here's the kicker, offshoring. There is no way that we can make iPhones cheap enough in the United States. We don't have the plants, we don't have the facilities, and we don't have the pay scale. So it's made in Southern China instead. And by the way, Southern China, right here in Guangzhou area, they'll do like 2 days of just German iPhones, and they'll localize them for Germany. Then they'll do a bunch for Russia, and then they'll do a bunch for Japan, and then they'll do a bunch for China, and then they'll do a bunch for North America, and then they'll do a bunch for England, all in the same factory, and just keep it rolling. There's no other place in the world where they can do that. Every language, Indian, Hindi, whatever. This is called localization. It's really key. And if you're going to compete in the world, you have to localize. You have to let the local people feel like their culture is being respected, their language is being respected. And so this localization is a huge thing, and China excels at it. All right, now, what could disrupt offshoring? Things like 3D printing, where you can make things now. I know so many people who created little companies where they use digital printing to create things and then to sell them online. I know so many people who have created businesses from their home that have been able to use the internet and to create a lot of money. One of my good sales guys that at Qualtrics left the company. He was making lots of money, but his wife had started a little startup up in Heber online, and it was making so much more money that he had to go full time just to manage it. So I did that when I was younger. For 7 years, I had a company, and we were all digital and we were all online, and we ran it out of Nebraska, and I worked here, and the other part was in Arizona. And you can do that now. You can literally go just using Google Apps, create a business system overnight and start trade and business the next day. You can in 2 hours. I launched a business online in 2 hours one night. just to see how fast it could be done. So those are the kinds of things, but somebody can do that anywhere. You can be in Mexico and do it. You can be in Central America and do it. You can be in India and do it. And then there's open sourcing. Now I put this at number 4 and I'm leaving this. And that is things like Wikipedia, it's things like Facebook, it's things like Google, right? Basically, this is the most disruptive force of all. It's basically that information can be transmitted free. And it all started with this student, Shawn Fanning, college student in Boston, Northeastern University, got bored one day. And back in that day, you had to get all your music on CDs. So what he did was he stripped the music off CD, put it on a digital platform, put it online and said, anybody want a copy, you can have it. So essentially what he did was say, here's the latest song by this artist. You have these huge companies, you know, behind this artist trying to make millions of dollars off this song. And he's putting one copy for the entire world to listen to for free. It completely destroyed the old music industry. The product was called Napster. It was the first peer-to-peer. You guys use peer-to-peer all the time. And my guess is there's a lot of the music that you use that is not exactly paid for. Videos you haven't paid for, all that kind of stuff. And who made all this possible? One kid in his dorm room in Massachusetts. Meanwhile, young people quit buying music traditionally and just started downloading whatever they wanted. Movies too. Guilty? Probably everybody in this room is guilty, whether you knew it or not, of downloading something that was copyrighted. When I put these videos up and I show clips, Google checks, YouTube checks to make sure there's no copyrighted information. And there's several I've had to clip out, a song or something that was in the background, and I had to clip out that bit. One group decided, oh, okay, let's do this. It's called Radiohead. Let's try something new. Let's try a new business model. Let's put our new CD. This happened quite a bit ago. This happened in 2007. Let's put it out there for free. Anybody can download our next album, set of songs, for free if they want. And if they like it, they can pay us whatever they want. They made more money doing it this way than they did through the old music industry. So these are very disruptive forces. This idea of all of this information on the internet, that you can get any information you want. Never before in the history of the planet have so many people on their own were able to find so much information about so many things so quickly. And also too, there is this huge potential for misinformation. Where you go out on the internet, 90%, it's a cesspool compared to what it started out as. When it started out as you could find what you wanted. Now you have to dig and dig, and then you can't really trust half the sources because it's all about making money. It's all about you clicking on a link and buying something. That's all Google is about. Google isn't your friend. Google is spying on everything you do so that it can put ads in front of you for things you may want to buy. And companies in the background are paying them literally billions of dollars every week to spy on your phone, to accumulate data on you so they can sell you stuff. It's the same with Fox News, CNN, all these names. They literally are a business. And they're going to feed you the articles and information that you want to hear so they can make money off it. There's nobody out there not trying to scam you somewhere or another. And the reason I tell you this, right, is this is a very disruptive force. And we've seen it play out in our politics where people click on a Facebook, older people click on a Facebook thing and they think it's true. And in the last election 4 years ago, we had 5,000 campaign-related Twitter accounts set up by Russia to disrupt our elections. And people were clicking on it and retweeting and forwarding and whatever because they thought it was true. And it was just Russian misinformation. All that's been proven. Now, what's the steroids for all of this? It's your iPhone. The iPhone and, of course, the Android, the equivalent, your smartphone, is really the tool that is just taking the world to a new place. Now, That right there is the most powerful tool ever invented in humankind for change. And there's a lot of stories I could tell you about disruption and whatever else, but all I'm trying to do is tell you that don't worry about socialism or communism or any sort of ism, whatever. You worry about globalization and your education so you can compete in this digital online world as a country right here, a little tiny country. Don't think we're all that big. 4.5% of the world's population. We can't make vaccines ourselves. We have to buy them from European companies. We're in a world, we're not in isolation. The idea of putting America first, and America can do it. Well, America could have done it in the 1950s and 60s, but not today. Today, any company you join of any size is going to be an international company. Vaccines, we have to work with other countries to get our share. And we have to pay for that because we don't own it. So we've got to readjust our thinking and we've got to work on our degrees. Now, the one thing we do know is that this class you're taking right now, all of these different things that you're studying are to help you advance your career. So take it seriously. Let me show you an image here. You see this image? 1990, this is when the Cold War ended. This was Shanghai, China. Look at it today. Well, look at it 20 years later. It's actually even bigger today. That is a country on the move that is doing the biggest construction and development projects in the history of the world right now. And we are falling further and further behind because our politics is caught in the past. We've got to build back better. We'll never be the dominant economy in the world again, but we can at least snatch our place in the world where we can compete and where we can contribute and where we can be a part of the action. That means maybe learning Mandarin Chinese or learning all about the European Union and how to work in that environment and expanding your horizons beyond our own. I think this is a stunning image. And this is what globalization is about. China was once a backward country in 1990, hardly a blimp on the economic scale. Now they're the world's greatest economy. They did it in less than 30 years. Where are we going to be? Because relatively, right, we're still a strong economy, but the world has become flat. What we got to do is prevent this from happening, where we become a second world or third class country. And right now, when it comes to vaccine, we're a third world country. We're doing terribly compared in terms of the virus compared to others. But England is showing us the way. A few weeks from now, maybe we can get on that boat. We need hundreds of millions of doses and we need it fast. Our lead in technology that has shown us, this vaccine development has shown us that we're not where we thought we were, and we can do better. And so let's hope the next administration can build back better. And we can do the kinds of things here that can contribute to the health of our country and also to the health of the world. And we can grow into our new future, which is a global world. And there's no stopping globalization. You know, Mr. Trump campaigned against globalization. You can't stop it. It's like water flowing down a river. So you need to jump into the stream and become part of that stream, or you'll get washed away. So hopefully now we can jump back into the future like we were 4 years ago and look to the future, both in energy, climate change, all of that, and become more part of this interconnected world, right? Because it's the only choice we got. It's the only option. So becoming closer partners with Mexico and Canada becomes really important. There's lots of things like that. I'm going to stop it right there because I think that's what you need for your paper. Get those last study guides done. Now this grade's in your hands. It's going to be like a nightmare for me to grade all this stuff. And it's going to be like every night, sleepless nights to get it all graded for next week. But if you want an A, you can still earn it. But you got to go back and make sure you don't have any zeros. And if you have low scores, resubmit. And if you do resubmit something, could you just put next to your name, resubmit? So, or give me a little note in that where your name goes. and says, look, I'm resubmitting just this essay. Could you work on that grade and make that grade higher if, you know, if this essay's done well? And everybody can still earn an A. That's the beauty of this semester. Everybody can still earn an A. So get busy and work hard. And hopefully too, you'll be done with my class completely by Friday night at midnight. And that way you can focus on your other classes over the weekend and next week. Okay. All right, you guys, hang tight, and we'll see you later, hopefully in person someday. All right, later.